Anything cute you want to do before you start? Say, I'm Kathy.
What?
I'm Kathy Roberts. Okay, so it's already recording and it looks so good. There's nothing I need to change.
Okay.
Taking it all the way back to the origin of Kathy Darcy Roberts, what are some childhood memories that stand out to you from being in the Darcy family?
Well, I think that my best memories are just like of having this great big loving family, like all these brothers and sisters. Like I never had to really feel alone, or I always had friends or someone to do something with. And mom and dad were always there. Either mom was there or dad was there, or both of them. And every event that I had or anything that I did, it was like you always knew that someone was going to be there to support you. So, even as a little child, I felt that. But certainly when I got older and was participating in things, I was a brownie. My mom was my brownie leader. I played ponytail softball and basketball. My mom was my coach. Dad was always at everything. We'd all go to my brother's games. Like I can remember being in St. Killian's gym in the old school. Family members would remember this. It was a tight little gym, and the building seemed like it was going to fall down, and you could barely fit all the people there. And we would, for sixth grade and seventh and eighth grade basketball games, people would be going nuts. And I was the scorekeeper for Tom's and Tim's games, and I was like so into it and had so much fun watching them have fun. And I remember that more than my own basketball games, really. And just all the fun camping trips we did, like as a family, like we looked forward to every year, like just all being together for 2 or 3 weeks. We would go on the road and we would go camping. Like we'd go to upstate New York. I went to Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, New York State. We went all over upstate New York, to the Finger Lakes, to Niagara Falls, we went up to Canada. We did so many cool things, and those are such great memories. And 8 people in a small camper, there's a lot of other memories that are just crazy and silly and fun.
How did your family help mold you into who you are?
Well, the centerpiece of our life was our family, but beyond that, the real centerpiece was God and our faith. And so, I'm sure my kids have heard us say this a million times: faith, family, and friends, and everything else will fall into place. And that's so true. That's the way that we lived. I remember as a young girl, like going to Catholic school and the church events and things being the centerpiece of our lives. We would go to confession together. I remember going into St. Killian's Church every Christmas to see the Christmas display and the manger scene, and all of us going up and kneeling up there and saying prayers. I remember my first communions with 100 of us in communion dresses and suits doing that. But the family being there for the confirmation, all the church things for the first communions, graduating from St. Killian's, and then, always going to church together as a family, always taking the time to go to church no matter where we were. We were in upstate New York, Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire on trips, or if we had games, it was always the thing that came first before everything else. You could have fun and do these things as long as you kept in place what was most important, and our relationship with God and all that was first, and then we could have fun and do all the things we did. And most of the time we were able to do both because we planned for it and we understood what was most important.
Nice. And then,
well, I think I had such a great childhood because I had lots of friends and parents that were there. And so when I became a parent, I wanted to give my kids the same love and security. So when I met Warren, it was like such a great thing to meet a man who valued family in the same way. I feel like I had the greatest parents in the world. They taught me things that were very important: faith, family, and friends, which I've already mentioned. But, the way that they showed up for us every day and loved us and gave us security was something that is priceless. It's so important to a child to feel loved and valued, and like what they do matters. And my parents gave me that every day. the security and the love. And, as I got older and I was dating and looking for someone to share my life with, I met Warren Roberts. And he was so cute, really, and nice and funny. But the thing that I really liked about him best is he had really the same values that I had, and his family and people were really important to him, and he liked to uplift people just like my dad always did. And he would come to my house and it would be a date for us, and he'd disappear. I wouldn't know where he was, and he was out playing ball with one of my brothers or talking to my sisters. And some girls might have been annoyed by that, but I liked it because I was looking for a man who was going to get along with my family, and who also was going to be able to give his family the love and attention in the same way that I did. And he has never, ever disappointed me with that. He's put our family first all the time, and the kids, he's given them so much love and encouragement. Is never a moment that he would say no to doing something for any of us. And in the morning driving them to school, I was a little jealous because they were having so much fun with Dad. They'd jump in the car and he'd be saying, "Let's get ready to rumble," and then he'd be playing music, and Elizabeth would be running down the driveway because she was the last one in the car. But he always made life fun and always gave a lot of time, and my focus was doing that. And my role was a little bit different because I was more like my mom, the caregiver, and always making sure everyone had what they need, keeping the schedules going, food, clothes, cleaning. But also I was a coach and went out to their games and played with them and drove them places. The moments I cherish the most are some of the times I drove them places and we just talked. We didn't know what kind of conversations we were going to have and stuff. You never know what you're going to learn, but having those moments together, very unexpected, sometimes are the greatest ones. So, just giving people your time and attention is one of the greatest things you can do. And I had that, and my goal with my family was to give them that. And I hope that we did. I think that we did. So I'm pleased with the family that I've had and that we were able to do that. It was a good thing, everything we hoped for.
How did you and Dad meet, and what do you remember about your first date and dating and moving to Salisbury or Maryland? And what do you kind of remember about from when you met on?
Well, there's a funny story about that because we both worked at McDonald's, and I was supposed to be playing basketball, but I didn't make the team that I wanted to make, so I quit. And my friend Mary Beth Ward said, "I work at McDonald's. Why don't you come and work?" We rode the bus together. So she said, "Come on, we'll go work there." So I did. And when I got there, there was this blonde guy that was always at work. And I was like, he's kind of cute. But every shift I had, the guy was there. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense because, how could we always be on the same shift? Well, later on, I found out there was two blonde guys. One was Warren and one was this guy, Richie Vogel. I don't know which one I thought was cute first. But anyway, the one I ended up choosing or having a relationship with was Warren. But we always laugh about that because he's like, "Which one did you really like?" And I'm like, I don't know. So anyway, we were working at McDonald's and we got to know each other. And he and his friend Tom Fazio were, dating girls at McDonald's. Warren and I started dating, and he dated someone else. And the first date we went out, he took me to a movie, which I didn't like the movie, but I was glad to go on a date. It was Blazing Saddles, of all things. I was like, Blazing Saddles? I hate that movie. But anyway, I enjoyed the date. And then we went to the Pawnbroker for our first date, which the Pawnbroker was a wine and cheese bar, restaurant, for, where couples could go out. And in there they had bookshelves, and it was kind of eclectic in there, like things that you might sell in a pawn shop. And then games like backgammon was popular then, and checkers, and they had all things. And they sold basically wine and cheese and desserts, so it was a nice place. You weren't going to dinner, but you would go with friends and talk and have a glass of wine or beer or whatever. And so that was our first date. And before we went on that date, though, Warren and I were talking, and he said, I'd like to take you out sometime, but I'm leaving for Florida in 2 or 3 days, so we can go on a date when we get back. I'm like, why wait? We should go out before. So we did. And then he went to Florida, and I remember when he came back, I can still see this in my mind, him coming to my house and walking up the front walkway on Sullivan Road with a bag of oranges in his hand for my family that he'd brought home from Florida. And he would come in, and he was always greeting Mom and Dad. Hi, Mr. Darcy. Hi, Mrs. Darcy. He was very polite and nice, and always nice to my brothers and sisters. And so after that, we continued to date, and we had a lot of fun because the McDonald's crew, we would work like the night shift. We'd work either 4 to 8 or 4 to 12, and then we'd go out. I don't know why I didn't get in trouble from my mother some nights when I got home at like 2:30 in the morning and stuff. But yeah, so we worked at McDonald's for a couple years together, and we had a really good time with all our friends until my family moved to Maryland. And then I had a change of plans there, and we had to decide where I was going to live and all that. Mom went to Pocomoke first to live, and my dad stayed in New York for a few months until they sold the house. So I lived at home with Dad, and then when he left, which was I think like December or November the year 77, I think it was, I went to New Hyde Park and lived with Grandpa and Grandma Helen, and continued to commute to Farmingdale to go to Farmingdale College. And then Nana and Pop lived in Farmingdale on Conklin Street in a small apartment. And shortly after Mom and Dad moved, Pop died, so Nana was all alone. And so then I moved back to Farmingdale and lived with my grandmother to finish out the year. So during that year, it was pretty tumultuous. I was living in a few places, but the time I lived with Nana was really nice because she needed company, but she was very faithful. Right now I have her morning prayer book, which is really important to me. But she and I shared a lot of things. Her favorite show was Guiding Light. And so whenever I get home from school, she goes, our stories are on, and she'd put on the Guiding Light, and she'd have a cup of tea for me, and we'd sit and have our tea and talk. And I felt really good about being there because I'm sure she was lonely from my grandfather dying, and it was nice to be able to be with her during that time and help her, to get through it. And Warren, Dad, used to always come and visit, and he'd always talk to Nana and laugh with her and make her feel like $1,000,000. And she loved the Yankees, and while I was living there was this terrible snowstorm in February or March, and it was like 1.5 feet, 2 feet of snow fell, and no one could get out. Well, Warren and his friend Tom Fazio, I think they walked from South Farmingdale a couple miles and came and dug us out and everything so we could get out and everything. It was so sweet. But I was at Nana's apartment, so there's a lot of good memories of that. But my relationship with my family and with Warren, I loved that he was interested in being with my family, helping my grandmother, being kind and nice to my brothers and sisters, and getting along well with my family. So it's all a big package, my life. I mean, the things that are most important came together in a beautiful way.
That's true. When you and Dad were dating, at one point you guys broke up for a little while, and then how did you get back together? Tell me just briefly about it, and are you glad you got back together?
Well, I guess I'm glad. Here I am 40 years later, right? Still with the same guy. We had...
I just broke.
Oh, no.
Sorry.
It's all right.
Okay, go ahead then.
We had...
Sorry.
When my parents moved to Maryland, I was at Farmingdale College, and so I didn't want to move immediately with them because I did not want to move to Maryland at all, honestly. But after I decided to stay in New York for the next year to get my degree from Farmingdale College, my 2-year degree. So I did that, and I got that. I graduated from high school in '76, and I did my 2 years at Farmingdale College, so I graduated in June of '78. And when I finished that, I had to make a decision about what's next. And honestly, Warren would say that although it was fun dating me, I cried every night because I missed my family a lot, because they were all in Pocomoke and I was up in New York without my mom and dad and brothers and sisters who I was so close to. So I decided to move to Maryland only if I could not live in Pocomoke at that time. So my cousin Jim Zimmer and my cousin Bill Zimmer were going to Salisbury State College in Salisbury, Maryland. And I thought, okay, if I can move there and go to college there, and I'd still only be 30 minutes from my parents, that would be a good thing. I would meet people, I would have fun, and then I would still be close to my family. So that's what I did. So in August of '78, I went to Salisbury State and, had a lot of cool roommates and friends. I lived in Chester Dorm, and I started meeting people, joined a bowling league, and at that time Dad and I were still together. But as college went on and he was up in New York and I was there, you start to feel like you're meeting people and you want to do things and you don't want to cheat on the person. So I did break up with him during that time, a couple months in after I got to Salisbury. Wrote him a Dear John letter, which isn't very nice in those days. So you didn't have a cell phone. So what did you do? So, but the thing is, during that time, we kept in contact. We wrote letters to each other, and I used to talk to him on the phone periodically. And, years later, I came to realize that whenever I was struggling or I needed someone to talk to, he was the one I would call, or he would call me. And so that tells you a lot. Even though we were not dating, we were still friends and we could rely on each other. And so we were broken up for a couple of years. I graduated from Salisbury in 1980. I lived in Salisbury after graduation for about a year and worked a bunch of jobs. The economy stunk then, so I had 7 jobs in 1 year. Every job I got laid off from due to the economy, not my performance. I hope not from my performance anyway. But so I got an opportunity. My friend who I was living with, Laura Zimmer in Salisbury, met my Uncle Warren and decided to get married to him. So she was leaving Salisbury. She was my roommate. I had nowhere to go or nothing, no other roommates. So I talked to some friends up in DC and they said, we have an apartment. You get a job up here, you can move up with us. So I went up to Washington, D.C., went to an employment agency, got a job at a place called Reed Smith Shaw and McClay on Connecticut Avenue in D.C. You could walk to the White House from there. It was pretty cool. It was a law firm. I worked for the administrative managing partner. His name was Norman Golden. The reason I'm telling this story is it brings me back around to how Warren and I got back together. So when Warren found out I was up in Washington, D.C., that fall, he called me and he said, TWA, who he was working for, he worked for the airlines, has these great deals on airline flights now. I can get a $10 ticket on New York Air to fly from Kennedy to DC Airport. So I'm going to come and see you. So he did. And he flew into National Airport. I met him and we got on the metro in DC. And we're riding back, we would take it to Laurel, Maryland, and then to the metro station in New Carrollton. And then we would drive back to Laurel where I was living. And by the time we got on the metro and to the end of it, he was telling me how he still very much cared for me after these years of broken up. And, that he wanted to see if we could work it out. So I was really shocked because I hadn't seen him in a few years. But that opened the door and we started talking and he started visiting more frequently. And, we rebuilt our relationship. And in February of 1982, he invited me up to New York and I drove up there. And my friend Lori Gregus and I I think her boyfriend Peter and Warren and I went to a dance at St. Killian's Church. It was a 50s dance, so we had poodle skirts and all that cool stuff. And after that, Warren and I went to the pawnbroker where we had our first date. And then he asked me to marry him, and I said yes. And it was like, it was cute because he's not a frilly person, you know. He kind of like says exactly what he's thinking, and he was just like, he had the ring and all that, and he's like, I thought about posting I remember him saying this, I thought about posting a sign on the highway riding so you could see it, will you marry me? And I thought about all these things, but then I thought I should just ask you. He got down on his knee and said, will you marry me? So it was very sweet.
That's cute.
So that was February of 1982, and we had been separated for a while, and we had known each other for 7 years. So we're like, we're not going to have a long engagement. So we got married on June 13th of 1982, and I was very fortunate to have the great mom that I had, because I was working in Washington, D.C., and my mom made all the arrangements for the wedding. She would call me and say where we're having it, what her plans are. She picked out the invitation. She did all that. And I'm not worried about details. I just wanted to get married, and I knew she would do a nice job. So she went with it and did everything, and we had a beautiful day. The day we got married was beautiful for us, although it rained like crazy. It was a stormy, nasty day, but I didn't care. I was marrying my hun, and it was great. I'll start with Elizabeth.
That makes sense.
I'm going to go in age order.
Elizabeth, and what you love about this child, as a child, maybe as an adult too, like as much as you want to say.
Yeah. Well, Elizabeth is my first baby, and it's so exciting to have your first child and watch them grow and develop. The thing about Elizabeth, she's always has so much spirit and spunk. Like, I think that's my favorite thing about her. Like, she loves to do things, and she loves to participate in life, and she is really a kind person. Like, probably as a kid, she wasn't like that way as much. She was always fun and looking after the kids and all that. But as an adult, she has blossomed into one of the most caring and kind people that I've met. Like, she's so considerate and caring. She's always checking in on me and Dad and making time to come be with us, and making time for her friends, making time for Nana and Poppy. She comes and helps them. As a child, she was energetic, enthusiastic. I said she should have been a lawyer, because if she had some point that she wanted to make and something she wanted, she would not give up until she got it. And, sometimes as a child that can be a difficult trait because it can get you into trouble. But as an adult, it's a great thing, because it gives you the ability to stick with something and work hard and get what you want. And she does that with her family. She gives 1,000% every day, even on the days that it's hard. She loves everybody, even when it's hard. And she has fun. She makes sure she has time for them. And, she doesn't worry about some of the little things, like whether every piece of laundry is folded or all that, and that's a better place to be, really, to be making sure that you are spending time with the people you love, uplifting them and giving them your best every day. And she does that. As a kid, she was the greatest gymnast. I thought she was really going to go far, but it was my fault she didn't get to go too far, because we had 4 kids and the gymnastic programs were so expensive and so time consuming. And when she was a young girl, she qualified for different levels in gymnastics, and then she got to the level where she could go into competition, and it was going to involve a lot of time that maybe we didn't have as a family, and so we didn't go forward. And I've regretted that a lot, because I thought it would have been really good for her. But as the oldest in the family with 3 younger kids, it was like almost an impossible thing for me to do. But she was very talented. She was good at almost anything she tried. She was good at sports. She was She was a great student. She had straight A's all the way through till ninth grade, I think. She never got a B. And, she was in the gifted and talented program. She, had lots of friends, did amazing things. She did Girl Scouts and brownies and softball and all kinds of sports and dance class. Jenny and her were in the dance loft. So, and she had a zest for everything. Whatever she did, she enjoyed totally and took it to the max. And, I've watched her grow into an adult who uses those gifts and talents to uplift others. And I've seen her grow in her faith and how she's a member of her church and volunteers. And her and Bethany have done Adopt a Block and all these wonderful good things. Her volunteering in the nursery and making sure that that's part of her family's life. So I love her and I'm really proud of her, and she's a great person.
You have to talk about me.
Now I go on to Jennifer Roberts.
Yes.
Jennifer, it's your birthday today. One of my fondest memories of Jenny is doing her little dancing around the house with her tutu on. But there's so many great memories. When she was born, this is my second baby, and my first baby was a very busy child. So, there was, it was just a whole different personality. And Jenny was quieter and very sensitive and a person who considered a lot of things always from the time she was a little girl. And Jenny was very artistic. She loved to draw and pretend, and she loved to write, and she was so talented at all of it. My favorite drawings, though, was when she would dream of the house and the property that she would have one day. She'd make these big things, and the house would have a pool, and it'd have a stable, and it would have, 10 stories, and there probably was a princess at the top and in some fancy little gown or something. She reminded me of me when I was a little girl. I used to draw all these fancy princesses. They would be like they were doing a Miss America contest, so they'd be lined up and everybody'd have a pretty fancy dress. Well, Jenny was always artistic and making things, but when she was in elementary school, in particular in first or second grade, people noticed right away that she had a talent for telling people stories, and she loved to write, and it was very descriptive and very unusual for someone so young to be able to tell a story in the way that she did, where you could really see what she was talking about. And the teachers would be like, Jenny, she's going to be a writer. Her first grade teacher was Miss Howard, I think, right? I think it was Mrs. Howard. And she would, tell, I think, I'm not even sure. But then her third grade teacher was Miss Dowdy, thank you. It wasn't coming to me. And, Miss Dowdy said she was going to be the one to buy Jenny's first book. She was so positive and so encouraging to Jenny to use her talents and abilities. And, you could tell stories in so many ways. And, Jenny was born a storyteller, and she started through art and through writing. But then as she grew into a young woman, she discovered a passion for telling people stories through video. And one of the most impressive things she did with that was making her own videotapes for college coaches. She was a great field hockey player. It was so much fun to watch her go down the left side and handle the ball and stuff. And Miss Susan Pusey, who was her coach, really encouraged her that she was a strong player and could play at college. So Jenny decided, okay, I'm going to go for it. And she made her own video to send to college coaches. And in those days, you couldn't put it on the internet. You had to make a video on a VHS tape and mail them. We mailed like 30 packages of videos that she made for herself. But how did she learn that? Everybody's life is dependent on what others help. Like with Jenny's field hockey career came from having a lot of influences, people that coached her and all that, but particularly Miss Pusey. But Jenny's love of video and learning all about that came through Warrior Communications at Pocomoke High School, and her aunt Maureen Brittingham was the person who ran that program and helped her to discover her passions. So, you know, I don't often quote Hillary Clinton, you know, but she said it takes a village, but it's really true that your life is a sum total of a lot of people's influences on you. And my kids were so lucky to have positive people in their lives that influenced them and helped them develop their talents and their passions. And so Maureen and Miss Pusey, you really impacted Jenny's life. And she made me so proud all the time as a little girl with all the things that she did, her sweetness and her kindness and her writings. And I have so many notes from her, Mommy, I love you, and all that. And then, you know, her sensitive side and, you know, caring about people and things, and then having the courage and determination to go for her dreams as a young person, playing Division I field hockey, going and starting her own show, MU, at Monmouth University, and then going on to Ohio University and earning a Master of Fine Arts. She was actually my inspiration for going back to college and getting my master's degree. I don't know if I was jealous or whatever, but I wanted to prove that I could do it too. But I was so proud of her for doing that. She had gone through a rough patch in life, and she picked herself up, was resilient, and took her talents and used them and found a way to build a life for herself with them. And now, you know, she's found a passion with her video, with her yoga and videos. She's able to use those talents and put it together to make a business for herself and a life that's really, truly satisfying to her. And she's very thoughtful and kind, and always, like with my mom and dad, reaching out to them, and there for Michelle and Chris and everybody, taking the time to talk with them and love them. And I love her boyfriend Brian. He's a great guy, and the two of them together really have done well. And I can't say enough about how much I love her. I hope she and Elizabeth and Chris and Michelle know how much I love them, and how proud I am of them, and how much I respect the things that they're doing.
How do we move on from that? That was so good. That was so nice, Mom. Thank you. What about Chris?
Chris. You know, we almost only had 2 kids. If I had listened to Dad, there'd just be Elizabeth and Jenny. After having the 2 kids, I remember I said to Warren, you know, I want you to have a son. I know you want to have a son. And he's like, it's okay. We can just have 2. I don't want to put you through it. I'm like, no. Well, so December 15th of 1989, Christopher Raymond Roberts was born. And, you know, Dad loved his girls so much, but for a man, when he has a son, it's really special. And I was so happy to be able to have a son for him, and they've shared so much together. And Chris was an incredible little guy. He was so pleasant and easy to be around. He really was a good little boy. He was good with his sisters. He would go along with all of their silly. Being the only boy with sisters, he had to do a lot of things that were girly girl if he wanted to be included. Not that he was a girly girl, but they would put bows in his hair sometimes, or they would do fashion shows, and he would participate and stuff, you know. But he would go right along with all those things. But as a young guy, he really liked all his little shows and Army Men and Cars, and there were so many things. And Chris, he was funny. He had a little spot in the house that was just his. And as he grew up, whatever phase or stage he was in, the things he were interested in were in that spot at that time. So when he was in the baseball cards phase, there were baseball cards all over there. When he was in the Thomas the Train stage, all the Thomas things were there. When it was, Legos, And I had a blast with him when he was in his Lego stage, because I like building and puzzles and figuring out things. So he and I would sit for hours and build, you know, some Star Wars thing or the police station or some whatever kit he got that year. And so we had a lot of fun doing that. He always loved his sports. It was so fun to watch him passionate. I see it in Austin and Landon now, how much they love, especially Austin. Like, he always enjoyed going out and competing and playing whatever sport there was. You know, soccer became his favorite, but he played baseball, he played basketball, and he was always up for games in the neighborhood with the kids. And, you know, his birthday parties were like the coolest ever, because he would want to have his December birthday party was always a football party. And he would always, since Warren had the sports shop, he would get shirts made for the kids. And Chris, we would go out and get footballs as prizes for them. And Chris would always make the brackets. And he would have a bracket planned, and the kids would play to those brackets. I don't even know how he knew about brackets as such a young kid, but he would set all that up, and the kids would come over, and Poppy loved to videotape everything. He had a camera. He would go out and sit on the deck, the pool deck, and videotape the entire football party. The man had so much patience, but Chris would go back and love to look at that with his friends. And you know, as Chris got older and we started thinking about what he was going to do in the future, you know, he had a great time playing soccer at Pocomoke and, you know, winning 3 state championships. And it was fun to watch him reach his goal of playing in college when he went to Davis and Elkins. And but I remember him, you know, we're talking about what do you want to do in your life and in college. He's like, I just want to play soccer. And I'm like, son, you must have a major. And so, you know, the thing that was important, we sat down and talked and we looked at, and I remembered how he liked to make those brackets for his friends and how much he loved sports. And, you know, I said, Chris, you know, there's a major called sport management where you could take the sports classes and do that and get business classes, and you should be able to go out and work in the field that you love in some way. So he bought into it, and that's what he did. And, you know, it's fun to see him play 4 years of soccer at college and graduate with a degree in sport management, and he's worked in the field ever since. He has worked for the Parks and Rec department, and, you know, being the director of Crown Sports, he's taking the training that he got and his love of sports and putting it together into a career that I think he truly enjoys and he's talented at and he's good at. And it makes a difference. And coaching, he always wanted to be the coach at Pocomoke High School, I think, the soccer coach. And he was the assistant for many years waiting. And then, you know, when Alan Bird retired, Chris became the head coach. And I truly feel he loves that. He loves working with the kids and teaching them some of the lessons that he learned and helping them to see that what they want is possible if they're willing to put in the work and the effort and the time. So it's so good to see him living that and giving back some of what was given to him. And, you know, Chris had a great relationship with his father. They always, Warren coached him all the time, and it was fun to see that. And he had a great relationship with Poppy, so that meant both my dad, but even more so with Poppy Raymond Roberts, who lived with us because he was in our household. And Chris learned a lot of lessons from Poppy and spent a lot of time with him. And Chris has a good heart. I remember when Poppy had his cancer treatments and, you know, he had chemo and he didn't feel good some days. Chris would take his blanket and pillow and go sleep in Poppy's room so that if Poppy woke up and didn't feel good, we would know about it because we were sleeping upstairs. And you know, I don't think we really had a night where Poppy had a problem that we knew of, but Chris was down there to help, and he wanted to be with his Poppy, and he would go in and sit with him and watch shows with him and play games with him and learn from him. So it was really good. And the other thing I want to say about Chris, he was really a good big brother to Michelle. When they were little, they were the cutest 2 kids ever. He was so sweet, and we have videotapes that Poppy took of him prompting her when people would ask questions, and hugging her and loving her. And that's the kids that I have, and that's the family that I have, and that's the beauty of it. And I'm just so proud of Chris and the man he's become, and now he has a son. And I hope that he has the kind of relationship with his son that he's had with his dad and his grandparents and such, and that he gets to enjoy being his buddy and being his friend and teaching him the life lessons. So I'm so happy for him that he has that boy, and I'm just so proud of him.
Very nice. And what about Michelle Teresa Roberts?
Michelle Teresa Roberts. What can you say about Michelle? That girl is always smiling, even when she doesn't feel good, right? And she smiled like from the minute she was born. She's always had just a way about her that people were drawn to her, even from the time she was a little girl. But, we had 3 children already, and, we had talked about whether we wanted to have more children, and Warren was like, okay, I'm good, and I'm like, no, Chris needs a brother. So I was like, we'll go one more, because he's got 2 sisters, let's get him a brother. So of course I got pregnant with twins, and there's a story there that I lost one halfway, and but when I had my baby, it was a girl, so Chris got a sister. But they had such a fun relationship, because Michelle and he liked a lot of the same things. They did the same things. They played together. She enjoyed sports, so she would go out and play with him. So it was like he had, a little brother, even though it was a girl. But she was the kind of child that you could take anywhere and do anything with. Like, we had a busy family. She had all these older brothers and sisters who had games to go to and things to do. And sometimes when you have a little child, it will affect the ability to go and do some of those things and enjoy them. But she was always up for it. She would go. She wouldn't complain. She would have fun. It was like she was almost as old as the other guys. And when Elizabeth was 9 when Michelle was born, so we're talking about a little girl going out to all these games and things, and she was always very positive and fun, and she had a lot of talents. She was pretty much good at everything she tried too. She would not go to dance class like her sisters. Like, one thing I didn't mention about Jenny earlier is how she wanted to do dance when she saw Elizabeth doing it. And I had to make a deal with her to get her to do it, so she could do it. They told her she could go to dance class if she was potty trained. She was only 2, and she did. But when Michelle came along, I said, don't you want to do dance class? She's like, no, I don't want to do that. She would not go to dance class. I don't think she ever went to one class. And but she always was independent, and although she was easy to get along with, she also wanted to do the things that she wanted to do, and she didn't have to always do what her friends were doing and what everyone else was doing. But she was fun, and she was like everybody's baby, like Elizabeth and Jenny, and always wanted to spend time with her, and they took care of her and mentored her, and she looked up to them and learned a lot from them. She looked up, she had a special relationship with Elizabeth, who treated her like she was her child, and then a special relationship with Jenny, who mentored her in so many ways. I've always said you can tell what you value by how you spend your time. And, in their relationship, Jenny in particular gave her so much time to help her build her talents and abilities. They shared a love of field hockey and spent a lot of time and encouragement, and I think through Jenny's mentorship, and that helped Michelle to develop skills as a young girl that led her to be able to be recognized and grow and develop and become an outstanding player on the national stage, and to go on to play college at Michigan, which we were very proud of. That was such a fun ride. But she knows, and I know, that didn't happen by itself. There was a lot of people, again, who coached her. And even I was her field hockey coach once, and I never played field hockey. So, but, well, I think I was it for 2 years. But, a lot of people who helped her to develop this skill. She was a good student. I mean, pretty much straight A's throughout elementary and middle school, and did pretty well in high school too. The thing I remember about her, she always had goals at a very young age. When she was in 5th grade at Pocomoke Middle School, they had, they picked the student of the year, and you have to write an essay about why you should be student of the year. So Michelle wrote her essay, and in the essay, she talked about the things that she did at Pocomoke, which was she ran for student council and she did all kinds of things. But I think the thing that was most telling about the person that she was when she put down her goals, which kids that age usually don't. She said, I am going to play Division I field hockey at Maryland. Well, she had the wrong M. She went to Michigan, but either way, it was a Division I. And then I am going to be a TV news anchor and sports anchor when I grow up. And so she kept those goals in front of her throughout her life and was willing to make the sacrifices to do them. And I was fortunate enough to be in a position where I could take the time to walk with her through all those take her to field hockey things and go across the bay or across the country for events where she was recognized, and gave her that opportunity to do that. And that was so much fun. It was so much fun. The funny story, Teresa Danig and I took Kirsty and Michelle over to Virginia Beach for the Virginia Beach Field Hockey League, just for something fun to do. We're like, oh, we can go over once a week, so we did it. And we're sitting there one day, and the game was over, and some coach comes over and yells, who is the mother of that child? And she's pointing at Michelle, and I'm like, it's me. It was the coach from Old Dominion University, the assistant coach, and at that day offered Michelle an opportunity to come to the Old Dominion camp for free because they recognized her talent and they probably wanted to recruit her, but she didn't like that camp too much, but she went. And but that was fun, and we made so many friends through that, and she had so many friends and people. Like we did shore team with Miss Pusey and Miss McQuaid. She did with Jody and Julie. We did Eastern Shore Field Hockey, and she was with Coach KK and doing that. We also played with New Jersey Intensity. So she had a lot of opportunities and made a lot of friends, and so did I along the way. So that was really fun. But the thing about Michelle, she's a hard worker, and she doesn't give up easily. And even when things are difficult for her, she presses on, in spite of it. And she cares greatly for her family and her friends, and, but she is a very driven person and will do whatever it takes to make something happen. And yet she's kind and loving and fun. She's got a lot of spunk, and she's always out to do something fun and interesting. She loves going to games and going out with her friends and, spending time with the family. I think, the last 10 years or so since she graduated from Michigan, she's been on the road and away a lot, and that's been hard, but she always calls and talks to everybody, and we've been able to keep close. That's the thing I love the most about my family. I think that everybody is close and supports each other and loves each other, and especially with the baby, which she is to us. And I'm so proud of what she did, the accomplishments that she's made and things that she did, reaching her career goals of being a sports broadcaster in Michigan and on the Big Ten, in Kansas City and on the Big Ten Network, and going to New York and doing that, and now in Florida. And, I just can't wait to see all the other things that she's can accomplish. And, her boyfriend Anthony and she have a really good relationship and have fun together. And I'm so glad to see her happy in that way. And, you know, she's just been a joy, a real joy, and someone I'm proud of. I'm proud of all the kids, you know, and I'm just a very, very blessed person to have the 4 kids that I have. Each one has great qualities, great character, and they love each other, and they love me, and I love them, and their father, and I love them so much. And, you know, my goal in life was to have a beautiful family and to make sure that they loved each other. And someday when I'm not on this earth, that they have each other. And, you know, I think that Warren and I together accomplished that with our beautiful family. And I'm just very blessed.
Nice. So, it's 4:20.
Okay.
Just giving you an update. Michelle had mentioned maybe you talking about each grandchild. I
Okay.
don't know, you know, how much more you want to do, just because we've been out here a long time.
I know.
Do you want to talk about each grandchild or something like that, or
Okay.
do you want to talk about something else, like what are the biggest lessons you learned, or do you want to talk about each grandchild?
Maybe I give a little bit about each grandchild.
Okay,
It won't be that long because,
good.
all right, let's start with Bethany. You know, I've always said that Bethany saved our family, saved her mom. You know, Elizabeth was going through a rough time in her life when she had Bethany. And Bethany has been the biggest blessing, I think, to her, because she, Elizabeth, in a difficult situation, chose to love and to give Bethany the best that she had. And, you know, I love Bethany's name, Bethany Hope. You know, that's something that resonates with me so strongly, because in life, the most important thing besides your faith, family, and all that is to have hope. And when you have that, you can do anything and work through almost anything. And hope means that you're expecting that things can change and get better. And knowing that makes it possible to get through. Wonderful for the great days, but it also makes it easier on the hard days having that. And so Bethany represents, like, you know, the ultimate love of a mother. She represents hope to me. She's so kind. She loves God. She's talented. She loves to sing. She really loves to sing because she loves to praise. That's beautiful. Bethany's had some challenging times, but in spite of that, she exudes joy, and she loves, and she cares. And I just think that she's a wonderful person, and I love her a lot. Okay, let's talk about Big A, Austin. AJ. You know, is that Aaron Judge of the future? I don't know. You know, he loves the Yankees, so, you know, AJ and AJ, we'll see. But, you know, Austin was born November 3rd, and on that day, I was in Michigan. I don't know if he knows this, maybe he does. I was in Michigan. Michelle was graduating from Michigan that year, so she was having her senior game of field hockey at Michigan. So I get a call from Elizabeth. She's like, I'm in labor, and I'm ready to go to this game to watch. I'm supposed to stand out with my daughter on the field. So I was like, all right, I'm going to stay long enough for that, get the picture. I had a taxi waiting in the parking lot that took me to the airport. I got a flight, ended up in Maryland at the hospital And I made it before Austin was born, amazingly. So the first pictures of me with Austin has me in my Michigan gear with my Michigan sweatshirt on. But you know, that's probably pretty cool because he loves sports, and came from a sporting event to be there with him. So maybe we'll make him a Michigan person one day, I don't know. But Austin is very, very special. He's got a great personality. He's got a great understanding of life. He has a good way of communicating with people. Like, he seems wise beyond his years many times, and he's passionate about what he does. He enjoys life, and he's athletic, and he enjoys playing sports and being with people. He's a good student, and you know, he's nice to be around. He's fun to be with, and you know, I really enjoy being with him. I'm proud of what he's doing, and he and I have developed a ping pong game called Pong Ball. So he's got to get over here soon so we can play. And you know, recently Elizabeth and I went to a concert that was rained out in Ocean City, but before it got started, Austin and I were there throwing around a football. And I love being the grandmother that can play some sports with him because I like sports too. So Austin, I love you, and I'm really think you're a great kid, and keep having fun and keep working hard. Landon, he is so funny because he is a born comedian. You know, he gets such a kick out of doing something that's going to make someone laugh. Or he loves being silly, you know, but he's got a really soft side, and he loves to do art. Like, he's very artistic and very good at that. And I love seeing his creations and such. You know, when he comes over, you know, I really get more of a chance if it's one-on-one with him to really spend time with him and see the side of him that's really quiet, and you know, when it's just him, he's not the jokester. He likes to sit and talk and do his artwork or play a game, and it's really fun to spend that time with him. You know, when he was little, he didn't really like to go to the beach because of the sand and stuff, but it's fun to see him. We go to the beach, he loves to run around and play, and he loves sports just like Austin. Like, he's pretty good. He keeps up with the big guys, you know, and that's hard when you're the little brother trying to tag along with the big guys and be included, and he is pretty talented and can do it most of the time, you know. And you know, I remember for one of his birthdays, I took him to the store, Pa and I, and we got one of those baskets that's Five Below, and said, oh, you can pick out 6 things. And it was so fun because he got so excited, and it's fun to see him smile and do things and enjoy his time. And you know, with Landon, you know, he also has a zest for life, a lot like his mother. You know, like, he gets excited, and that's why he's clowning around and being funny. It reminds me of Pa in some ways, like his grandfather, you know, who likes to do all that silly stuff too. So, you know, I know Landon can really do a lot of cool things. You know, I've heard Elizabeth say that he'll be the new Jim Carrey one day. That may be so, but Landon has a lot of potential to do great things with his artisticness, his funny ways, his ability to make people laugh, and I hope that he uses them, and it's going to be fun to see what he does.
Nice. JR, Chris?
JR.
Forget about the little baby.
JR. JR is so cute. You know, he has charisma already as a little guy, you know. He really, like, when you're holding him, he's not blankly looking at you. He really is interacting and being like, you feel like he's chatting with you or he's understanding you and all that. But I look at him and I see Chris as a little guy. And he's very, very settled baby. He's not jumpy. He doesn't cry a lot. He is very happy. And I've told Chris and Amber, that shows me that they're doing a great job with him. They're giving him the comfort and security. He's well fed. He's given a lot of love. He's given a lot of attention. And the reason that he behaves that way is because of the great job that they're doing with him. Plus, he was born with a cute personality, and he's just very cute. I've been able to sit with him and hold him for a long time, and he's just so sweet, and he giggles, or he'll just be settled and happy to be with you. And what can you say? That's the greatest feeling, to hold a little one. And they don't expect anything. You love them and they love you back, and that's how he is. And he's very easy to love, and he's just the greatest.
What are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned in life? Anything that comes up, I know there's a lot to choose from.
I think that when you're young, you have a direction, and you think the things that you're going to do in your life or what you're going to do. And as you get older, you realize that you do have control of certain things, but there's certain things that you don't. And so I found that life is cool in that way, because you start out in one direction, but some circumstance or situation, good or bad, it doesn't matter what it is, may cause you to adjust what you're doing and do something different and something that you never anticipated. And sometimes that's the coolest thing, because you think you know where you're going and you end up somewhere else that might even be better. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I grew up in New York. I thought I was always going to live there. And then my parents moved to Maryland, so here I end up in Maryland. And then I go back to New York with Warren, work there for a little while. After we got married, come back, live in Pocomoke, which I said, don't ever say this, that you're never going to, I said I will never live in Pocomoke. Well, I lived there like 38 years or so. So I've learned never to say never. And it was a great life there, so I was wrong to really think that about it. It was really, I enjoyed my life in Pocomoke, had great times with family and friends. But, as things happen in life, my parents moved, things changed. Warren and I changed jobs, came down. We opened a sporting goods shop. We had babies. And every time we had events happen, we would have to adjust and change to work along with whatever the circumstances was. Something that's really funny to me that I enjoyed happening, and I never thought I'd be a regional sales manager of a company doing home party sales. But when I was expecting Jenny, I had an opportunity. I wanted to stay home with my babies, and I remember praying about that. And praying about things is another important thing, because prayer works. You may not always get the answer that you were expecting, but you do get an answer, and usually it's better in the long run than what you even asked for. But I remember praying that, God, please lead me in a way to stay home with my babies, because I was working outside the home and I didn't want them to be in daycare. And so I opened the paper one day, the Daily Times, I guess it was. Do you want to work from home, stay home with your children, da-da-da? I'm like, yes, give me more. I applied to that ad, and it was one for House of Lloyd and Christmas Around the World. And they were looking for supervisors to start this home party plan about Christmas decorations. I'm like, well, Jenny was about 2 months old, I think, or not even, and I had applied for that job. While I was pregnant with her, I went to an interview at a hotel in Salisbury. I would never do that now, but I did. I'm going like 9 months pregnant, and I was interviewed for that job, and I got it as a supervisor. So I was hired to hire demonstrators for Christmas Around the World. They flew me out to Kansas City for training, and I had a baby at home. Warren and I always worked together. He stayed home and watched the new baby and all the kids, so I could do that. I happened to have a lot of success, but at that time my mom and my sisters were also worked for the company, so I could be successful. I hired them, and I earned a trip and was promoted to a district manager. The next year, the regional manager, and earned trips and had fun. But what it did is it gave me the answer to my prayer so that I could stay home with my kids. And it was funny, after 10 years, the company went down and I changed course. And my kids were school age then. And so what did I do? I went to work at the schools so I could be on their schedule, be home in the summers, be at all their games, be at all their activities. I was a secretary again at a school. You know, I had my degree to be a teacher, but this worked better for my life and family. So I feel like life is constantly about changing and growing and making decisions to suit what's happening at the current time. And so each season of life dictated something different that I would try and do and try to bring to my family. So, you know, I did that for a while, and as everyone grew up, it was great because I was able to spend the time with them. And to me, the most important thing was that as I went through my life, if I was going to have a family, that I would spend time with them. So working for Worcester County Public Schools really was a blessing because I was able to do that. It provided insurance for our family when my husband had his own business. Darcy Sport Shop was great because we had all these kids who were athletes that wanted to play sports. And boy, you know, with a family of 4, it'd be game day and we wouldn't have a pair of socks, or somebody'd be missing a shoe. And I'd call them and I'd say, bring home some cleats, or bring home a socks, or we need a glove, or we need a field hockey stick, or whatever it was. And so Warren and I worked together to build that life. And then, you know, as the kids got older and things changed, you know, his business changed and he had to find something different to do, and he was blessed to get the job at Vernon Powell. I decided to go back to school to follow in Jenny's footsteps and got my degree as a school counselor and was able to do that. And, you know, it was a hard job, but I think it was also rewarding to know that I could help some people, and I think I did. I hope I did. And we sold our house in Pocomoke, you know, in 2016, and decided to downsize. And we ended up in Ocean City and Ocean Pines area, which I've enjoyed so much. I loved Ocean City. I lived there as a young person 2 summers. And so, you know, Warren's always called me the Ocean City girl. And he's right, I love it. And so we've had a lot of joy coming. You know, it was hard to sell our home where our kids grew up and to downsize, but it was also time to take steps for the next phase of life. So these 5 years that we've been here have been really fun. Like, we were able to live in Florida for a little bit. We lived in Ocean City in the carousel 2 different times while we were trying to figure out. And then we got this home in Ocean Pines, which has been a blessing, and it's great because we love the neighborhood and we love going to the beach. And so, you know, you can see life brings you things that are unanticipated. We never intended to live even here, but as we made choices and things happened, we adjusted and we did what we thought was best. And you know, for the most part, it turned out great. And so I think the biggest life lesson is to make a plan, try to put yourself in the direction of that plan, but don't be afraid to adjust it and make changes that are suitable for your life and for the people in your life. Because for me, almost every decision that I made, especially since I've been a mom and a wife, has been to put my family first and to put the needs of those people first as part of the decision. It's not the only part of the decision, but it was the most important part, and then look at all the other factors and then make the best decision possible for the circumstance. And I feel like we were successful at doing that, and I've really had a lot of blessings and a lot of happiness, and I've loved the time I spent with my family and my kids, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
I feel like what I'm hearing a lot from what you're saying, if I had to sum everything up, just the word trust. Like, as far as trusting life to unfold in a way that will be good, or there's always something developing that you can't see or that you can't understand. How important is trust to you, even as you face challenge in life?
I think trust faith, hope, and trust, you know. But trust is, you know, you hear people today say trust the process and trust this, but, you know, trust is almost like the same as faith, like, to me, because if I trust you, I have faith in you. Trusting to me means knowing that something's unfolding, looking at it, and, you know, having, maybe if it's not what you expected, having some concerns and all that, but looking at the entirety of the situation and realizing, you know, I have my faith and I believe that there's a God who has a plan, and I believe that his plan will come about and that it's for the ultimate good. And so whatever is occurring in life, whether it be good or bad, I think trusting in knowing that things are as they should be and that there's a reason and a purpose for it, and that you might not even understand it at the time, but that somewhere down the line or in eternity you'll see what that was all about. And, you know, like I had to trust 16 years ago when I had my accident in Amsterdam. I had to trust that I was going to be okay. I had to trust the hospital I was in, where it was a foreign country. I couldn't understand what they were saying. I had to trust that Dad was going to take care of me. I had to trust the person driving the planes around the world. We were in a little Learjet. I had to trust the doctors when I came back. But you know, I've said that was something that happened that was unanticipated. It was challenging. Yet what I learned from that is that it was a moment of faith. I remember when I got run over by the truck, laying in the road and looking up to the sky and going, God, if this is your plan, just help me. You know, help me. And in thinking about it in years afterwards, I learned that, or I realized that if God is in control and he has a plan and his plan will be fulfilled, God's will, that he has a mission for each of us. And that day and that time in 2006, if my mission was done, then I would not have been here to do the wonderful things I've had a chance to do for the last 16 years. But he wasn't finished with me and had more work for me to do. So I've got to have like beautiful years and see you guys all grow, all my kids all grow up and my family and share a lot of great times. But if my mission was done, I wouldn't have survived that, you know? And as I go into challenging times now, it's the same thing. It really is. Every day we get up, we don't know if it's going to be our last day. We don't know. So we have to live our life to the fullest and love people and care about people and forgive people and just be the best we can for each other. And then know that in the challenge, if God's plan is that your mission is done, then you'll go back and be with him. And if your mission isn't complete, you will survive and go on and continue to serve as long as you're supposed to in your life. And knowing that is kind of helpful when you have a challenge, and knowing that fact in my faith helps me in a lot of ways and on a lot of days. And so if I could just share that, to have that faith and understand that there's a higher purpose and we're called in this life to do certain things, and hope that we're able to fulfill those missions in our life and to love. And I think the mission is about loving people. I think being able to love and to give to others of yourself is what we're all called to do. And hopefully we're able to fulfill that in our lives. And I've been loved so much, and I hope that the people that I love have known how much they mean to me and how much I love them.
What do you hope for your children? I don't know if you kind of already answered that.
What do I hope for my children?
Either individually, collectively, or
Collectively, I'll just do that. What I hope for my kids is that they can find the same joy in the people that they share their lives with. Right now, they have a lot of people to share their lives with: brothers, sisters, cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents, parents. So that's a great starting point. But when they find their partner to go through life with, to really understand how much of a blessing that is, and how don't take it for granted, and love and forgive and have fun and give each other the time that, because you show what you value by how you spend your time, and value and love each other and show each other how important you are. And if you can you find someone special to walk through life with, it makes everything so much better. And that's what I hope, that you have a strong faith, believe in God and believe in the power of love, and find someone to take this walk through life with, so you never have to walk it alone. And you're not alone because you got this great family anyway, but having that special person to go through life with, and if you're blessed to have children and have that family, to give them what you've been given and give them the best you got, that's what I wish for you.
Very nice. My only last question is, speaking of that special person in your life, was there anything else you wanted to say about Mr. Warren, or say to Mr. Warren?
Mr. Warren.
Your Wally
Yep.
Gator.
Warren, you're the love of my life. I never met anyone like you. You have such a capacity to love people and care about people, and you're so happy to uplift them. And one of my favorite things is when we're out places and you see an elderly person or someone who just no one seems to be talking to you, and you take a few minutes to go and just give them a sense that someone cares about them or notices them or loves them. And says, it might be something funny, it might be something personal. I don't know where you get these things off the cuff, but sometimes they're silly, but they still make sense, And we have all these Wally-isms that we say and we make fun of them, but they're so funny, and you've made life so much fun and so great. I've always felt blessed the way you put all of us first. I used to laugh when I'd see you go out, and you always took your lunch every day. You would never spend an extra dime on lunch because you wanted to have the money for the family. You wanted to have the money for the family, and you drove the oldest car possible and didn't want to get a new toy like a lot of people do, a new truck or a new boat. You're like, nope, we need it for the family. And so your entire focus throughout our marriage was on our relationship and for our family, and you were willing to sacrifice anything for us, but you still had fun. You made sure that, the kids always had something to laugh about, and they knew you were on their team no matter what. And I couldn't have asked for more than that. You've loved me. I've never one day gone to sleep or felt like you were not taking care of me or my family. I always felt like you were devoted. I always felt like you put us first. I've always felt secure in our relationship, and I really love you a lot. And I'm grateful for everything and the life that we've had. We did it. We went out and we set the goal when we left New York, we were coming to Maryland to build this family, and we're like, well, if it doesn't work out, we'll go back. Well, here we are 40 years later. We're still here, we're still going. We have 4 beautiful children who are adults now, who are contributing to the world and doing a great job. We have 4 beautiful grandchildren. our kids have Robbie. Elizabeth has Robbie, who's a wonderful husband and father. Jenny has Brian, who's a great partner, and they do great together. Chris and Amber have a beautiful son, building a life together, and Michelle and Anthony together, support and love each other. I'm so happy and proud of that. And, Warren, they learned a lot from you as their father, and hopefully from me as their mother. And I think that I'm just so grateful that we were able to build this beautiful family and fulfill what we set out to do with faith, family, and our friends. And then, it really did all fall into place. I love you, Warren.
Wow, that's the best.
Huh?
That was the best.
Well, I'd like to say that I have the greatest mom and dad ever. Mom, I know how much you sacrificed to have 6 kids, and the things that maybe you could have had for yourself that you made sure that we had. You always spent time with us, even though you had 6 kids. I can't believe you had time to make our dresses for Easter or Christmas or whatever it was, and coach our teams and be in charge of Mother's Club. But the thing I always felt is love, and I felt very secure. I can only remember one time coming home from school and you weren't there, and I was shocked. That just shows how secure and how wonderful my life was. I never had to worry about anything, and I'm grateful for all your love and all the time that you spent with me and brothers and sisters and with my kids. You always are thinking of them and reaching out to them, and you're really a great mom and a great grandmother and a wonderful person, and I love you so much. And Dad, you are the ultimate counselor. You always were the one that we would come and talk to, and you would make us feel like we were so wonderful and like we could do anything. And I noticed that my kids noticed that, and they would come and sit with you and want to hear your stories and your perspective, and they could feel like they could do anything. I know you worked hard having a couple of jobs, being in the police department and the bus, but I always felt like you were there too. I never felt like my dad wasn't around. You were there, and you were supporting us and loving us. A funny story, I remember being in 2nd grade, and I was always that nervous Nellie anyway, and I had that speed test that I failed, and I brought it home to Mom, and I said, I have to have it signed, but don't show Dad. And she must have told you, and you pulled me aside and you said, Kathy, I need to talk to you about this. I'm not mad at you for the grade. I'm not happy that you were afraid to tell me. I want you to always know that you can tell me, and I know you try hard, but I remember that because I was a little scared girl, and you told me, no, I'm here for you, don't be afraid, and I love you. And that was so key. And as a little girl, I remember going, Mom had an operation or something, and you had the PBC dance, and I was probably in 3rd grade, and you said, Mom can't go, but will you be my date? So you took me to this adult dance, and Mom had dyed my communion dress purple, and I had this purple dress, and I was with the police officer, the one in charge of the place, and I felt so big and so loved. And there's so many memories, camping trips and fun times, but I just want to thank you for being a great dad and for always making me and Warren and my kids feel special. I love you very much, and I thank you for everything. You're the greatest. Mom and Dad, both of you. I love you. So, Tom, Tim, Maureen, Dorian, Kevin, we grew up as the Brady Bunch, right? 3 girls, 3 boys, right? Tom, you were, who is it? Which is the oldest brother? Anyway, I was Marcia. Marcia. And Maureen was Jan, and Dorian was Cindy. And Tom, you were Greg. And there was Bobby and Peter. I guess Peter was Tim. Bobby, but I'm joking. But you know, that show came out at the time when we were a young family and the six of us were at home. And it was so much fun growing up with all you guys. You know, one memory I have is we were in Canada and we were on a camping trip, and Mom and Dad took us to Expo 70 or something. And I remember walking through the expo and these people pointing at us and counting in Spanish to six, looking at, I guess they'd never seen a family with 6 kids, I don't know. Or maybe we were just in our camping clothes, I don't know. But I had so much fun with you guys growing up. Like, Tom, I always wanted to play and compete with you. And I was never as good as you at any sports, but you would let me play. And then, you know, when I would go compete with the girls, though, in bumper pool and stuff, I was pretty good because I'd played with you, or tennis or whatever. Remember Tom riding our bikes over to the bridle path at Northside Park and playing tennis, and you guys would be looking for golf balls, or Tim and Tom, we'd go over and go skating on Bethpage Park ponds in the summer and stuff, riding over to Stern's Pickle Factory to get pickles. I mean, it was pretty fun living in New York. You know, it was really hard for me when everybody moved away. Maureen and Doreen, you were my cute little sisters, and I just always enjoyed watching you guys do all the cool things you do. Maureen, you were like so talented, like strong and athletic, and I always wished I could be like you. And you know, you're such a great teacher and all that. It was so fun to watch all the things you guys could sing and perform, and you know, it was fun. Tim, you were the ultimate jokester. You were my Steve Martin brother. You know, I loved how you would always be joking and having fun, and you and Tom were so athletic and always competing, and you know, you would let me play with you guys, and it was fun. And Kev, I always thought of you as my baby. I remember I got my first little camera, and the thing I wanted to do was take pictures of you. I have some still of you sitting on the grass in Sullivan Road as a little guy in a little striped shirt. But you know, I loved watching you guys grow up and being your sister and doing all the adventures that we had as a family. But it's been so fun to be together as adults and know that the closeness we had as kids continues. Thank you for always being supportive and being my best friends throughout life, like Tom and Aaron and Tommy and Colleen. I love your family and the life that you've got. And it was cool when Tom and Tommy lived with us for a little while, because he's like my second son. It's pretty cool. And then Tim and Jen, you know, with 4 boys, I don't know how you've done it. I'm sure it's been a fun and wild ride, and you know, we've enjoyed all the times that you've had Christmas parties at the house, and enjoyed, you know, just sharing that special time with you, and proud of your family. Maureen, you have reached out to my family in so many ways. I love you so much, and I think that it's been so great to watch you and Dean and your family and the faith that you guys have, and how you have impacted so many lives in many ways through your faith, but through as a teacher and as a friend and as an aunt. Doreen, you just are the ultimate person who wants to help someone and, you know, be there for people. You're a great mom. You and John have, you know, loved your kids so much and been for them every step of the way. You know, if I want something done or I need some advice on something, I'm going to come to you, because you'll figure it out right away. You're amazing in so many ways. And Kev, you know, Kevin and Aaron, you know, with you guys, it was so nice when you lived here, and then when you moved away, it's made it a little bit harder to spend as much time. But I love how you make an effort to come back and see Nana and Poppy as frequently as you can, and your kids do. And your grandbabies are beautiful, and Maureen too, and Doreen too. You have beautiful grandchildren, and You know, we're just so lucky that we have each other and the family that we have and the life that we've had together. And I'm so grateful for you guys, all of you, and love you so much.